I didn't quite smash through Heathcliff's shield, but I felt it wobble just a bit. His health bar got a tiny bit smaller, not enough to make a big difference though. Heathcliff jumped back on his feet and pulled away from me. "Wow, you're super fast," he said with a grin. "Yeah, and your defense is crazy strong," I shot back. I charged at him again, swords flashing in the light. Heathcliff lifted his sword and met me halfway. We started exchanging lightning-fast blows, our swords clashing in a blur of color and sound. The arena floor shook beneath our feet as we fought. Heathcliff's shield blocked my attacks, and my swords blocked his. Sparks flew everywhere, leaving trails of blue, red and green behind us. Every now and then one of us would land a weak hit, and our health bars would shrink just a little bit. But mostly we were evenly matched, at least for now. Here's the rewritten text. The rules were simple. If either of us took too much damage and fell below 50%, the fight would be over. But I wasn't thinking about that. For the first time since I got stuck in SAO, I was facing a real opponent, someone who could actually challenge me. My heart was racing and all my senses were on high alert. Every time I thought things couldn't get any crazier, we'd kick it up another notch. "Follow me if you can, Heathcliff," I shouted. This was what it meant to be fully alive, every skill, every move, every ounce of energy unleashed in an amazing rush. I was totally in the zone and it felt incredible. I'm pretty sure I had a huge grin on my face. The battle was getting intense, and my opponent's health was dropping fast. I could see the halfway point just ahead. Suddenly I saw a flicker of emotion on Heathcliff's face. It was like a mask, but for a split second I thought I saw panic in his eyes. He hesitated just for a moment, and his attack slowed down. That's when I struck. I shouted, dropping my defense and charging at him with both swords. My move was called Starburst Stream, and it was like unleashing a blast of energy from the sun. Heathcliff tried to block it with his shield, but I was coming at him strong. He grunted, as he raised his shield to guard against my attack. The battle was far from over. I kept pounding away, hitting Heathcliff with all I had. My blows came from everywhere, above, below, left and right. He tried to fight back, but his moves were getting slower and slower. I was finally getting through to him. I could tell my last few hits were going to be the ones that broke through his defense. I saw my chance and took it. His shield moved too far to the right, and I struck with all my might from the left. My glowing attack disappeared into Heathcliff's body. If it connected, his health would drop below 50%, and I'd win the duel. But then something weird happened. The world around me seemed to blink. Time stood still for a split second, less than a tenth of a second. Everything froze, including my body. It was like time had been stolen from me. I couldn't believe it. What was going on? I thought I had this duel in the bag. That is, until Heathcliff pulled off an insane move. His shield suddenly jumped from his right side to his left, like a magic trick. It blocked my perfect attack and turned my sure win into a loss. I was stunned. What just happened? I muttered. When someone blocks a big attack, they get a split second to strike back. And Heathcliff didn't waste it. He countered with a quick thrust of his sword, ending the fight in an instant. As I fell, I saw the purple words on the screen announcing the winner. Heathcliff. The crowd's cheers came flooding back, but I was still in shock. Asuna rushed over and helped me up. "Kurito, are you okay?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm fine," but my mind was still reeling. How did I just lose? It didn't seem real. Asuna looked at me with concern, like she could tell I was still trying to process what had just happened. And honestly, I just couldn't believe I'd been beaten. That last move Heathcliff pulled off was seriously insane. It was like he defied the laws of the game. And maybe even the laws of human possibility. For a split second his speed was so crazy that it seemed to glitch out his character model. I glanced up at Heathcliff, who was standing a little ways away from me. Even though he just won, his face looked sharp and intense. His metallic eyes locked onto mine for a moment, before he spun around and walked away, without saying a word, disappearing into the crowd of cheering fans. As soon as he was gone, I turned my attention to Asuna, who was standing next to me. "What's with these clothes?" I asked her, feeling a bit confused. She had just handed me a brand new outfit, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. Asuna just shrugged and said, "It's pretty obvious what they're for. Now, come on. Stand up." I stared at the new uniform they'd given me. It looked just like my favorite old coat, but instead of being worn and comfy, it was super bright white. There were 2 tiny red crosses on the collar, and a big one on the back. It was my new Knights of the Blood outfit.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I asked for something a bit more low-key, I said, frowning. Trust me, this is one of our simplest designs. They replied with a smile. You look great in it. I flopped down into the rocking chair, feeling defeated. We were hanging out upstairs at Agile's place, like we always did. I'd kind of taken over the space as my own emergency hideout, which meant poor Agile had to sleep downstairs on a simple bed. It wasn't ideal, but it was home for now.
I was lucky Asuna had come to help out at the shop for the past 2 days. She's like a magnet, people love her. My boss was so happy with all the new customers she brought in that he didn't even yell at me. I was sitting in a rocking chair, feeling pretty silly in my new outfit. Asuna hopped up onto the armrest, and started gently rocking the chair back and forth. She couldn't stop smiling at me, which made me feel even more awkward. Then her face lit up like she just remembered something. Hey, I forgot to officially welcome you to our guild, she said, clapping her hands together. Welcome, recruit. She gave me a cool nod, and I quickly sat up straight. Nice to meet you, I guess, I replied, feeling a bit awkward. Here's the rewritten text. I've got a problem, I said. Looking up at her, I'm just a newbie, and you're second in command. I reached out and gently touched her back. That means I won't be able to do that again. She let out a loud hayek, and jumped up from her seat. She even smacked me on the head. Then she stormed over to a chair on the other side of the room, and plopped down, looking pretty angry. Her cheeks were all puffy. It was a quiet afternoon in late fall. The sun was shining lazily through the window, casting a calm glow over everything. It had been 2 days since I lost to Heathcliff. And just like he wanted, I was now part of the Cove. I didn't feel like making a big deal about it right now, so I just went along with it. I had just 2 days to get ready before I started my new job at the guild headquarters. My mission? To explore and clear out the super tricky 75th floor of a labyrinth. Asuna noticed me letting out a quiet sigh and turned to me with a curious look. Guess you're stuck with us now, she said with a smile. I tried to sound positive. Actually, it's perfect timing for me. I was getting to the point where I couldn't do things on my own anymore. Asuna raised an eyebrow. You're being nice about it. But hey, Kirito. Her hazel eyes locked onto mine, and I felt like she could see right through me. Why do you always avoid groups and people? Is it just because you were a beta tester, or have a special skill? You seem too kind to be a loner. I looked away, gently rocking back and forth in my chair. But then something unexpected happened. The words just started flowing out of me. You know, a long time ago, over a year ago I think, I was actually part of another guild. It surprised me how easy it was to talk about this after all the time that had passed. I felt a warmth in my heart when Asuna looked at me with kindness. It made the painful memories feel a little better. So I was exploring a labyrinth and helped some people out of a tough spot, I said. They were really grateful and invited me to join their guild. Asuna's eyes sparkled with interest. It was a small group, only 6 of us. But they had an awesome name, the Moonlit Black Cats. I couldn't help but smile as I thought about it. The leader, Kita, was a great guy. He always put his team first, and we all trusted him. He used a staff to fight, which meant someone else had to take the front line and distract the enemies. That's where I came in. To be honest, my friends in the guild weren't as experienced as I was. But that wasn't because they weren't good. It's just that I had been practicing non-stop. If I had told them how high my level really was, Kita might have changed his mind about letting me join. I have to admit, playing solo in online dungeons was getting old. That's when I stumbled upon the Moonlit Black Cats Guild. They were a group of friends who knew each other in real life. And their friendly vibes were super inviting. When they interacted with each other, it felt like they were hanging out in person, not just playing a game together. As I watched them, a little voice in my head started to whisper doubts. It reminded me that when I chose to focus on leveling up alone, I gave up the chance to be part of a team. But I pushed those thoughts aside and decided to join the guild. I had to keep my high level and beta experience a secret though. One of the guild members, Kita, had an idea. He wanted one of their lancers to switch to a new style of fighting, using a sword and shield, and he asked for my help in coaching that player through the change. It sounded like a fun challenge, and I was excited to be a part of it. Let's shake things up. If I joined the forward team, we'd have a solid 3 people, and that would make our group more balanced. Plus I got a special job taking care of Sachi. A super sweet girl with black hair that fell to her shoulders. When we first met, she giggled nervously and told me she'd been playing online games for a while, but making friends wasn't easy for her. So, on days when our guild wasn't doing group stuff, I'd give Sachi private sword fighting lessons. It was pretty cool. Sachi and I actually had a lot in common. We both liked to keep to ourselves sometimes, but deep down we really wanted to be around other people. Then out of nowhere, Sachi opened up to me and shared her deepest secrets. It was a total surprise, but I was happy she felt comfortable enough to trust me. Sachi was totally freaked out. She didn't want to die, and she was super scared of this crazy game we were playing. The thought of going into the wilderness terrified her. All I could say was, "Don't worry. You won't die." But the truth is, I'd been keeping a secret from her. I'm way more powerful than I let on. I didn't want to rub it in her face, so I kept quiet. But when I told Sachi she'd be okay, something unexpected happened. She started crying, and then a smile spread across her face. It was weird, but also kind of cool. Later on, 4 of us minus Kita decided to explore this massive labyrinth. Kita was back in town, using the money we'd earned to buy a house that would be our secret headquarters. The labyrinth wasn't a total mystery. Some people had already figured it out, but there were still plenty of unexplored areas waiting for us to discover. We were excited to see what we could find. We were all set to leave when someone stumbled upon a treasure chest. I thought it was a bad idea to mess with it, but nobody listened to me except for Sachi. The problem was that we were in a pretty tough area, close to the front lines, and our team's skills just weren't good enough to handle it. But the majority ruled and we decided to open the chest. Big mistake. It was booby-trapped with a super loud alarm that went off as soon as we touched it. The noise was deafening, and before we knew it, monsters were pouring into the room from every door. We panicked and tried to make a quick escape by teleporting away, but things were about to get even worse. The trap had a nasty surprise waiting for us. We were trapped. This was an anti-crystal zone, which meant we couldn't just teleport to safety. And to make things worse, there were way too many monsters for me to fight off alone. The others started to freak out and run away. I knew I had to act fast, so I pulled out my secret moves, the best skills I had been saving for a moment like this. I was trying to create a distraction to help us escape. But everyone was too scared to take advantage of it. One by one, my friends got hurt and disappeared into thin air, screaming as they went down. I kept fighting with all my might, trying to keep at least Sachi safe. But it wasn't enough. Just as she was reaching out for me to help her, a monster swung its blade. And it was over. She fell and I couldn't do anything to stop it. Here's the rewritten text. Right up until the very end, she believed in me completely. Her eyes shone with trust, like I was the only person who could save her. But my words were empty promises, and they ultimately proved false. When I returned to our old headquarters, Kita was waiting for me, holding the key to our new home. He looked at me expectantly, but I had terrible news to share. I told him what had happened, and he listened without saying a word. When I finished, he asked a question that made my heart sink. Why did you survive when no one else did? I took a deep breath and told him the truth. I was way stronger than the others, because I had been part of a special testing group. Kita's expression changed in an instant. He gave me a cold, detached look, like he was staring at something from another world. All he said was, "You're a beater." Those 4 words were like a punch to the gut. You didn't have the right to get involved with us. They hurt more than any physical blow. I felt like I'd been stabbed with a sharp sword. Asuna asked, "What happened to him?" I took a deep breath before answering. "He killed himself," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Asuna's body froze in shock. She didn't move a muscle. I couldn't help but think about how he did it. He jumped off the edge, and I'm sure he was angry with me until the very end. Just talking about it brought back all the pain and sadness. It felt like it had just happened yesterday. My voice started to shake, and I gritted my teeth, trying to hold it together. Asuna reached out to comfort me, but I didn't think I deserved it. A little voice in my head told me that I wasn't worthy of her help or kindness. I wanted to feel better, but at the same time I felt like I had to suffer for what had happened. My fists clenched tight with anger and sadness. "It's all my fault," I muttered. If I had just told them the truth about being a beater, they would have listened when I warned them about the trap. I thought about my friends, Kita and Sachi, and how I felt responsible for their deaths. I squeezed my eyes shut, but then forced them open again. The words tumbled out of my mouth like I was spitting out poison. Just then Asuna stood up and took 2 steps closer to me. She gently placed her hands on my face, and a soft smile spread across her face. She leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not going to die," she said. But even though she was speaking softly, her words were clear and strong. As soon as she spoke, all the tension in my body disappeared. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Asuna's smile grew wider, and she pulled my head against her chest. "After all," she whispered, "I'm the one who's going to keep you safe." Her words made me feel better, like everything was going to be okay. I sank into a cozy darkness, my eyes closed tight. Suddenly, I was back in that old bar, surrounded by the warm glow of orange lights. The members of the moonlit Black Cats were sitting at the counter, looking right at me. But this time their faces seemed to be smiling. It was just a memory, but it felt real. I knew I'd never be able to make up for what I'd done. My day of forgiveness would never come. But in that moment, it didn't feel like it mattered. The next morning, I put on my brand new white coat, and set off with Asuna towards Granzam. Today was a big day. My first day as a Knight of the Blood. Asuna and I were going to be a team, just like we had been before. Usually knights worked in groups of 5, but Asuna had used her vice commander powers to get us our own 2-person party. It was pretty cool. When we arrived at guild headquarters, I was ready for my first mission. But then I got my orders. "Training," I repeated, surprised. "That's right," came the response. "Here's the rewritten text." "All right, let's get our team together," said Godfrey, a big guy with curly hair, who wielded an axe. "We'll have 4 people in our group, including me. Our mission is to explore the 55th floor of this crazy labyrinth, and make it out alive. Then, we'll head to the town on the 56th floor. I had seen Godfrey before, sitting at a table with 3 other guys. But Asuna, the vice commander, wasn't happy with Godfrey's plan. "Wait, Godfrey. Kirito is working with me." She tried to interrupt. Godfrey just raised an eyebrow, and kept talking like he was in charge. "Asuna, I don't care if you're the vice commander. You can't just ignore the guild's rules. If you want Kirito on your team when we're actually trying to beat the game, that's fine. But for now, let's follow the rules." Here's the rewritten text. "As the leader of our team, I need to check out this new guy's skills. Just because he has a special power doesn't mean he'll be helpful." Before Asuna lost her temper completely, I jumped in. "Hey, Kirito is strong enough to handle you," I said with a smile. Then I turned to the new guy and said, "If you want to test me, that's okay. But let's make it quick. I don't want to waste time on an easy labyrinth. Can we just speed through it?" The man, Godfrey, looked unhappy, and told me to meet him at the west gate in 30 minutes. Then he walked away, looking grumpy. As soon as he was gone, Asuna exploded. "What was that all about?" she exclaimed, kicking a nearby pole in frustration. "Hey, sorry Kirito," she said, looking down. "I think we should have just gone off on our own." I grinned and ruffled her hair. "If we did that, your friends would have been really mad at me." She pouted. "I was hoping we could spend the day together. Maybe I should come with you." But I said, "No way, I'll be back before you know it. Just wait here for me." She nodded, looking serious, and said, "Be careful out there." I waved goodbye as I left the building. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I got to the west gate of Granzam. That's where I found the one person in all of Aincrad that I least wanted to see, Kuradale. He was standing right next to Godfrey, looking smug. "What's going on here?" I asked Godfrey, trying to keep my cool. Godfrey just gave me a knowing look, and said, "I know what happened between you two. Let's forget about what happened before, okay?" He burst out laughing. But then Kuradale sneaked up, looking all serious. I got ready for anything. We were in a safe area, but you never know what he might do. Instead, Kuradale did something totally unexpected. He bowed his head. "I'm sorry about the other day," he whispered, his voice hidden behind his messy hair. My jaw dropped in surprise. "I promise I won't be so rude again. Please forgive me." I couldn't see his face because of his greasy bangs. I stuttered out a response. Sure. What was going on?" Kuradale didn't seem like the type to apologize. So something must have changed his mind. But what? Here's the rewritten text. "Ha, that settles it." Godfrey burst out laughing again. I wasn't just being crazy, something weird was definitely going on. But I couldn't tell what Kuradale was thinking because he had his head down. In the game Sword Art Online, emotions can look pretty fake or over the top, so it's hard to know what's real. I decided to accept Kuradale's apology just to be nice. But I made a mental note to keep an eye on him. A few minutes later, another guild member showed up, and we were finally ready to head into the labyrinth. I started walking, but then Godfrey's deep voice boomed from behind me. "Hold up," he said. "Get ready for a realistic training session. Our instructor wants to see how we react in tough situations. To make it feel more real, we have to give up our crystals at least for now. That means everything, including your teleport crystals," he said. I didn't like this one bit. Those crystals are our safety net in a game where mistakes can be fatal. I'd been playing Aincrad for 2 years, and always made sure I had some crystals on hand. But when I saw my friends Kuradale and the others handing over their crystals, I decided to do the same. I didn't want to cause any trouble, especially since Asuna was watching. So I reluctantly gave up my own crystals too. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was part of the training. Now we're completely on our own, no crystals to save us if things go wrong. Here's the rewritten text. Godfrey was dead serious. He made me empty my pouch before he was happy. "All right, let's go," he barked. The 4 of us set off from the gates of Granzam towards the huge labyrinth in the distance. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice how dry and barren the 55th floor was. There were hardly any plants or trees around. I just wanted to get this over with, so I suggested we run to the labyrinth. But Godfrey shook his head. I wasn't surprised, he's super strong, but not exactly built for speed. We did run into some monsters along the way, but I didn't feel like listening to Godfrey's orders. So I took care of them quickly with 1 hit each. We'd been climbing over rocky hills for what felt like forever. Finally we reached the top of the 12th one, and the labyrinth came into view. It was made of gray stone, and looked really cool. "Time for a break?" Godfrey shouted, and our group stopped moving. I wanted to keep going and explore the labyrinth right away, but I didn't think anyone would listen to me. So I sat down on a rock instead. The sun was high overhead, which meant it was almost lunchtime. "I'll hand out some food," Godfrey said, pulling out 4 small pouches made of leather. He gave one to each of us. I caught mine and opened it up. Inside I found a bottle of water, and a small piece of toasted bread, the kind you can buy at any shop in the game. I was really disappointed. Why did I get stuck with such boring food? I thought to myself, feeling pretty unlucky. I should be munching on Asuna's delicious homemade sandwiches right now. But instead I took a sip of water, and that's when I saw him, Kuradale, sitting alone on a rock, looking pretty weird. He hadn't even touched his bag, and he was staring at us with this super dark expression under his messy bangs. It was like he was waiting for something to happen. And then it hit me. A chill ran down my spine. I tried to spit out the water, but it was too late. I could feel my strength fading away, and before I knew it I was falling to the ground. I glanced up to see my health meter in the corner of my vision, surrounded by a blinking green border. But it wasn't looking good. I'd been hit with paralysis venom. My friends, Godfrey and the others, were also writhing on the ground, unable to move. I tried to reach for my emergency supplies with my left hand, but another shiver ran down my spine. The problem was, Godfrey had the antidote and teleportation crystals that could get us out of this mess. All I had were some healing potions, which wouldn't do much to cure the venom. Just then, I heard a weird high-pitched laugh. He. It was coming from above me. I looked up to see Kuradale holding his sides and laughing hysterically. His creepy beady eyes sparkled with a crazy glint. Suddenly he burst into even louder, more manic laughter. "Ka-ha, ha, 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 ha." He was totally losing it, and it wasn't exactly reassuring.